Here are my 2 points. 1,
If you're buying,
and number 2,
if you're selling, if you're not quite sure where to start,
Thank you for doing a good job as always, and your analysis is spot on.
talk to Dan Gemus and his team. Find them at dangemus.com. And now, filling in for Dan Gemus, your host, Joyce Blackmere.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. I'm Joyce Blackmere, Director of Sales and Broker with the Dan Gemus Real Estate Team, and your host today, filling in to Dan because he's busy little bee this afternoon, working on his hives. With me in studio, I have Heather Marin, sales rep with the team. Hi, Heather.
Hi, Joyce.
What do you say we talk about some of the key signs of market stabilization, what they are, what they look like, what we're seeing in Windsor-Essex County?
Absolutely.
I find that, when we're reading headlines, a lot of those times, those headlines just cover such a broad demographic. So
Sure.
the whole province of Ontario or the country or whatever, right? So we really do need to sort of whittle that down to the area, the region or the neighborhood that we're living in.
Definitely.
Because it makes a huge difference. I know that the prices in Windsor and Essex County have skyrocketed over the past few years. But the reality is that Windsor and Essex County is still one of the most affordable areas in the province to live. And there's so many good things happening that we need to not lose sight of that. I think that, without having a crystal ball and, which we don't have, right? We can never say for certain, but I really do feel like there's a lot of good things happening in the area, and it really poises us for great positioning in the future. Okay, so let's have a look at this. So number one, balanced supply and demand. So the inventory of homes for sale aligns more closely with the number of buyers, reducing the intensity of bidding wars and rapid price escalations. I feel like we saw a lot of, or we've been seeing a lot of offers coming in that are conditional on a house to sell, on financing, on a home inspection.
Yes.
Buyers are taking their time for the most part to do their due diligence, not like the crazy times during COVID where, you had to make a decision on the spot or else you lost out. I feel like that was a terrible situation for buyers and sellers, to be quite bluntly. But right now, we're seeing a lot more listings on the market. There are probably a fewer buyers, I would say, or have been up till now, simply because they're awaiting interest rate adjustments. Sorry. But at the end of the day, we're seeing fewer bidding wars.
Yeah, definitely. And it is, like you had mentioned before, it's location dependent, it's price point dependent. Definitely in those, lower to mid-range price points, you're going to see it more often. But as you get to different, a higher price point, like 600, I feel 600 plus or so, in different areas of the county, that you're going to have some with some bidding wars and others where it just feels a lot more balanced.
Yeah. And I mean, we are still seeing a lot of properties go over asking price. And I think that sometimes that's a strategic pricing.
The listing price.
Yeah, the listing price is just too low for what the area will bear.
Absolutely.
So of course it's going to go over, but is it really going over the market value? Well, that's between you and your realtor to determine. But I would say, and again, this is something we can ask Ron, but I would say that appraisals are coming back at or over value in a lot of instances right now, because buyers are taking the time to do their due diligence. And just because properties go into multiple offers doesn't mean they're going wildly over. And sometimes they don't even go over at all.
Absolutely.
So something to keep in mind. Okay, number 2 on the list is moderating price growth. Home prices increase at a more sustainable rate, reflecting long-term economic fundamentals rather than speculative activity. And so that just goes to what we were just speaking about. Stable mortgage rates. Mortgage interest rates remain relatively steady, providing predictability for both buyers and sellers. I mean, they've been coming down slowly. 3 in a row is great. I think economically, we're, with the unemployment rate and, all those things, we still need to have work to do. But, I mean, just something to keep an eye on for sure. Consistent sales volume, month over month increase are not the same rate, always at the same rate as we've been accustomed to historically for the time of year. Really, I mean, we saw much slower August than we usually do. And August is usually slower,
absolutely,
but it was a little bit slower. But the number of home sales have been more consistent month over month. Like they've been almost on par, actually, for the past couple of months in a row. We've seen, right?
Yeah, it is staying very steady.
Yeah. Increased days on market, we've definitely seen that. We discussed that during the stats segment. The days on market are in around that 20 to 25 on average. That's not taking into consideration whether a property has been relisted because it didn't sell in the first time period. But that's something to keep an eye on. The higher price ranges, of course, or unique properties are taking sometimes a little bit longer to sell. But, that average price range, sort of that $450 to $750 is a very active price range right now. Economic indicators, so broader economic indicators such as employment rates, consumer confidence, and GDP growth support stable housing market environment. Definitely, we're keeping an eye on employment rates. The last what's the word I'm looking for? Release, news release, indicates that unemployment is higher right now.
It is.
So
it has gone up.
That's something to definitely keep an eye on. But we're, I think based on the reports that I've been reading, a lot of that has come from the part-time employment sector. I feel like students and part-time employees are having a more challenging time because the full-time job growth has actually increased.
Yes.
So that's a positive for sure. Balanced rental and purchase markets. Both rental and purchase markets exhibit stability with rental rates and home prices showing similar growth patterns. We've definitely seen an increase in the number of rentals.
Yes.
There's
a lot more
compared to
out
a
there.
few years ago. I used to carry a report with me that I had jotted down the growth, but the growth has increased significantly over the past few years in the number of leases that we're handling, especially on the MLS system. And, a lot of that's going to come from the people who purchased their investment properties. And we don't have as many students coming into the area as well. So there's more properties.
There's a lot more availability.
Yeah, exactly. Housing affordability, of course, this has been mainstream topic for what feels like forever now. Housing affordability improves or remains stable, making home ownership accessible to a broader segment of population. Well, there's obviously still some work that needs to be done here. But I would say that the average sale price, it's only increased 1.5% year over year, and that's the average price year to date. So that's reasonably stable. Yep. What else are we looking at here? We're looking at some demographic trends, population growth, age distribution, household information formation as well. And we're going to talk a little bit more about household formation when we have Ron on the next segment, because we're talking about ADUs.
Yep.
So that's been pretty mainstream as well. Not just ADUs, but families amalgamating, living together. So that's something that's become a lot more popular for sure. You've experienced that too. I think with you have a duplex coming up in Amherstburg, or you've had one of you had a duplex coming up.
I froze for a second trying to rack my brain.
Families living together. And I know that Erin has clients as well that is looking to build an ADU on their parents' property so that they can all be together.
It's definitely a common question. There are people that inquire about it. Do you think we could build an ADU here? Is there space for it? And obviously every municipality is different with their regulations, but it is something that a lot of people have started to investigate.
Yep. Housing supply dynamics is another one. New construction rates, zoning bylaws, availability of land. watching something on Facebook this morning, and Mayor Dilkins is saying, that the number of builds required were at like 80% of what they had targeted for Windsor and Essex, 85%, excuse me, of what they had targeted for Windsor and Essex County. So that's a positive thing.
Yeah,
and there's a
interesting.
lot going on. I know in our area in Amherstburg, there's building going on as well. So there's lots of new construction, which is definitely going to help. I don't know that that's going to help affordability,
Right.
because it's definitely not in that average price range, but inventory is important as well. Okay. All right. We're going to take a quick break. If we have time, we'll come back to this list a little bit later on in the show. When we come back from break, we have Ron Bondi from Dominion Lending and the Super Mortgage team joining us to talk to us about ADU financing. So there's still more to come. Stay tuned right here on the Dan Gemus Real Estate Show.